The Easter table was set with Mom's best china, the kind she only brought out when she wanted to impress someone. Crystal champagne flutes caught the afternoon light, casting tiny rainbows across the white linen tablecloth. Everything looked perfect. Magazine perfect. The kind of perfect that made my stomach knot. I'd almost declined the invitation. 3 times I'd drafted the text, "Can't make it this year, work emergency." But each time, guilt had stopped me from hitting send. So here I was, sitting in my parents' formal dining room in Westchester, wearing a simple navy dress while my younger sister Vanessa held court in head-to-toe designer labels. "Everyone, this is Dr. Marcus Chen," Vanessa announced, her hand possessively on the arm of the man beside her. "Chief resident in cardiology at Mount Sinai. We met at a hospital fundraiser." Marcus was handsome in that clean-cut professional way, dark hair perfectly styled, a kind smile, intelligent eyes behind frameless glasses. He looked to be in his early 30s, and carried himself with the quiet confidence of someone who'd earned his position through merit. "It's wonderful to meet Vanessa's family," he said warmly, shaking Dad's hand then Mom's. When he turned to me, something flickered in his expression. A momentary pause, like a word on the tip of your tongue. "And this is my older sister Claire," Vanessa said, her voice dripping with practiced sweetness. "The creative one in the family." The way she said creative made it sound like a diagnosis. A gentle way of calling someone unemployable. "Claire, nice to meet you," Marcus said, extending his hand. His grip was firm, professional. "What do you do?" Before I could answer, Vanessa laughed, that bright, performative sound she'd perfected. "Oh, Claire's tried lots of things. Photography, writing, graphic design. She never really finished anything though. Very much still figuring herself out." The words landed like tiny cuts. Precise. Practiced. I'd heard variations of this speech at every family gathering for the past 5 years. "I see," Marcus said slowly, still looking at me with that strange expression of concentration. Mom started pouring champagne, the bubbles rising enthusiastically in each glass. "Marcus, Vanessa tells us you just got promoted. How exciting." "Yes, I was very fortunate," he replied, but he was still watching me. "I actually just started a new position last month. Department of Cardiology at Lenox Hill Hospital." My fingers tightened on my champagne flute. Lenox Hill. Dad beamed. "That's one of the top programs in the city. You must be incredibly talented." "I had an excellent interview," Marcus said, his eyes never leaving my face. "The department chair was particularly impressive. Very thorough. She asked questions that really made me think about my approach to patient care." Vanessa squeezed his arm. "Marcus is being modest. They practically begged him to take the position. 3 hospitals were competing for him." "That's wonderful, sweetheart," Mom said. "And such perfect timing with the engagement coming up." I nearly dropped my glass. "Engagement." Vanessa's smile was radiant, victorious. She held up her left hand where a sizable diamond caught the light. "We haven't officially announced it yet, but yes. Marcus proposed last week. We're thinking a fall wedding." "Congratulations," I managed, the word tasting like ash. "Thank you." Vanessa leaned against Marcus. "I know it's fast, but when you know, you know. Plus, Marcus makes enough now that I can finally quit that exhausting marketing coordinator job and focus on planning the wedding. Maybe start my event planning business. You know, I've always had such a gift for it." The marketing coordinator job that I knew for a fact she'd been fired from 3 weeks ago. The event planning business she'd tried to launch twice before, both times with money I'd loaned her. Money she'd never repaid. Marcus was frowning now, his gaze still fixed on me. Suddenly, he reached for the hospital badge clipped to his jacket pocket. He must have come straight from work. He flipped it over, reading something on the back, then looked up at me with an expression of dawning comprehension. "Oh my God," he said quietly. "What is it, honey?" Vanessa asked. Marcus stood up, still staring at me. "You're Dr. Claire Westbrook." The room went absolutely still. Even the champagne bubbles seemed to pause in their ascent. "Dr. Westbrook?" Mom repeated, confused. "You're the department chair who hired me," Marcus said, his voice filled with a mixture of awe and confusion. "You interviewed me for 6 hours. We discussed the cardiac rehabilitation program I wanted to implement. He stopped, looking at Vanessa. "You're Dr. Claire Westbrook, department chair of cardiology at Lenox Hill Hospital." Vanessa's face had gone pale. There must be some mistake. There's no mistake, Marcus said, his voice changing, becoming harder. I have your signature on my contract. I've been reporting to you for 3 weeks. You gave me that entire lecture about patient-centered care and the importance of treating support staff with respect. He turned to Vanessa, his expression shifting from confusion to something colder. You told me your sister was unemployed and depressed. You said she'd been living with your parents for years because she couldn't hold down a job. The silence was suffocating. I said she was staying with them, Vanessa tried, her voice rising. I didn't say. You absolutely said unemployed, Marcus cut her off. You said you felt guilty about your success because your sister had struggled so much. You said she'd never finished medical school. I never went to medical school, I said quietly. My voice sounded strange to my own ears, distant. I finished undergrad at Columbia, then got my MD from Johns Hopkins, then did my residency at Mass General, then my fellowship in interventional cardiology at Cleveland Clinic. Then I became the youngest department chair at Lenox Hill in the hospital's history at age 32. I've been there for 3 years now. Mom's champagne flute slipped from her fingers, shattering on the hardwood floor. No one moved to clean it up. Claire, Dad said weakly. Why didn't you tell us? I did tell you, I said, each word carefully measured. I told you when I got into Hopkins. I told you when I matched for residency. I told you when I got the department chair position. You said, that's nice, dear, and then asked if I could lend Vanessa money for her apartment deposit. That's not, Mom started. $2,200, I continued. 4 first and last months' rent on that studio in Murray Hill. The apartment she still lives in. The rent I've been paying for 3 years because she said the marketing job didn't pay quite enough to cover everything. Vanessa stood abruptly. You offered to help. I offered to help for 6 months while you got on your feet, I said. That was 36 months ago. 36 months of $1,700 per month. That's $61,200, Vanessa. Marcus was staring at his fiancée like he'd never seen her before. You told me you paid your own rent. You said you were financially independent. I am financially independent, Vanessa snapped. Claire's family helps each other. While telling her boyfriend that she's unemployed? Marcus's voice was ice. While letting me think she's a failure? I never said failure. You let me donate to that charity in her name. Marcus's voice rose. Last month for your birthday, you said you didn't want gifts. You asked me to donate to organizations that help people struggling with depression and unemployment. You said it would mean a lot because of your sister's situation. I gave $1,500 to a job placement nonprofit in Claire's name. I felt something crack in my chest, not quite laughter, not quite a sob. You did what? Dad's voice was strangled. Vanessa's perfect composure was fracturing. I was trying to help. Claire clearly isn't comfortable with her success, or she would have told you all about it herself. She obviously has some issues with. Don't, I said sharply. Don't you dare make this about my mental health. I didn't tell you about my career because every time I tried you talked over me. Every time I had good news, suddenly you had an emergency that needed money. Every achievement I mentioned became about how hard things were for you. That's not true. I got published in the New England Journal of Medicine last year, I said. Groundbreaking research on cardiac cellular regeneration. I called to tell you. You talked for 45 minutes about how your boss didn't appreciate you, then asked for $2,000 for a networking course that would help your career. I sent the money. You never asked about my publication. Mom's face crumpled. Claire, we didn't know. You didn't want to know, I corrected gently. It was easier to have one successful daughter and one who needed saving. It made Vanessa special, the golden child who made it despite having a troubled sister. It gave you purpose, the martyred parents supporting their struggling daughter. That is not fair, Vanessa said, but her voice shook. Marcus picked up his jacket. I need to leave. Marcus, please. Vanessa reached for him. You lied to me about everything, he said quietly. About your family. About your sister. About who you are. You let me. He stopped, shaking his head. You let me donate money to help your sister while you were living rent-free on her dime. While she was literally my boss, someone I respect enormously, and you were calling her a failure. I never said failure. You didn't have to. Marcus looked at her for a long moment, and I saw the exact instant he made his decision. He pulled the hospital badge from his pocket and looked at it again. Dr. Westbrook gave me a chance when 2 other hospitals passed on me because they said I was too young for a senior resident position. He fought for me. She believed in my research proposal when no one else would. He set the badge on the table and reached into his pocket, pulling out a small velvet box. The engagement ring box. He placed it next to his badge. I can't marry someone I don't actually know, Vanessa. Someone who would exploit her own sister while pretending to care about her. Someone who would lie about something this fundamental. You're overreacting, Vanessa said desperately. So I simplified some things. You didn't simplify. You constructed an entire false reality. Marcus turned to me. Dr. Westbrook, I apologize for my ignorance. I should have realized, I've been working for you for 3 weeks. I should have recognized you. I look different outside the hospital, I said quietly. And I use my maiden name professionally. Different last name. Still. He shook his head. I'm sorry for any disrespect. Your work has been an inspiration. The cardiac rehabilitation program you approved, it's going to change lives. Thank you, Dr. Chen. And for what it's worth, you earned that position entirely on merit. I don't hire people out of kindness. He smiled slightly, then looked at my parents. It was nice to meet you both. I'm sorry it was under these circumstances. And then he left, the front door closing with a soft click that somehow sounded louder than a slam. Vanessa stood frozen, staring at the engagement ring on the table. Then she turned to me, her face contorted with rage. You did this on purpose. You ruined this for me. I didn't say a word until he recognized me. You could have played along. You could have lied to your fiancé? I stood, picking up my purse. No, Vanessa. I'm done lying. I'm done pretending to be less than I am. I'm done funding your life while you tell people I'm a charity case. Where are you going? Mom asked tearfully. Home. To my house in Brooklyn Heights. The 3-bedroom brownstone I bought 2 years ago. I looked at each of them. I'm also done paying Vanessa's rent. She has until the end of the month to figure out her own finances. And I'd like the $61,000 back, but I'm not holding my breath. You can't just abandon your sister, Dad protested. I'm not abandoning her. I'm stopping enabling her. There's a difference. I moved toward the door, then paused. For what it's worth, I really did hope this would be different. I hoped maybe you'd finally see me. But I realize now that you've always seen exactly what you wanted to see. Claire, please, Vanessa's voice broke. I looked at her, really looked at her. Saw the designer dress I'd inadvertently paid for. The manicure I'd funded. The life she'd built on my labor while dismissing me as a failure. I hope you find what you're looking for, Vanessa. I really do. But you won't find it by diminishing other people. And you definitely won't find it by lying to the people who love you. I walked out into the spring afternoon, where the air smelled like flowers and possibility. My phone was already buzzing. Mom, probably, or Dad. Maybe even Vanessa. I silenced it. Then I drove home to my brownstone, where my diplomas hung on the walls and my research papers lined the shelves, where I didn't have to hide or shrink or pretend to be anything other than what I was. Dr. Claire Westbrook, Department Chair of Cardiology, researcher, physician, and finally, blessedly, free. The next morning I'd find an email from Marcus Chen. Dr. Westbrook, if you're available, I'd like to buy you coffee and apologize properly. Also to discuss the cardiac rehab program. Your insights would be invaluable. Marcus. But that was tomorrow. Tonight I sat in my home office, champagne glass in hand, the good stuff I kept for celebrating my own achievements, and toasted to the only person who'd always been there for me, myself. And I'd never tasted anything sweeter.